So it's been quite a while since my last video. I'm finding that this block is going a lot faster than the first one. It's already been 2 weeks, and in 3 weeks I'll be able to be in the classroom again. Focusing on the physics curriculum class for this week, I really enjoyed looking at all the mirror misconceptions that students can have. The optics unit is the one I taught when I was on practicum, and I actually noticed that they did have a very hard time understanding the concept of a virtual and a real image. I really appreciated those Java simulators for showing all the different light rays. When I taught it to the grade 10 class, I really just used the 3 main light rays almost straight away. I mean, I said that there was many. So my students being visual, that probably didn't get through. So ray diagrams were a really complex thing for them. I really enjoyed that experiment where you cover half of the lens to see what part of the image you wouldn't get or if it gets dimmer. I kind of wish I could have done that with my students as well, because I don't know if they would have gotten that one right. I think it would have been a really great POE to do. I really enjoyed our conversation about success criteria, but given the fact that my associate teacher doesn't use them at all, I don't think I'm going to bring it up on practicum. But I think that in my regular teaching, once I get to be a full-time teacher, that I will use, I probably will try to incorporate them more. And do a bit more formal assessment as learning. And speaking about becoming a full-time teacher, it was great to finally understand how you have to go through being an OT to being an LOT to then, or an LTO, I forget what it's called, to then possibly getting a full-time job. It takes quite a while to get where you actually want to be. But it's good to finally understand how that works, and I'm kind of hoping that it's not the same thing in other provinces. I have some concerns about how much hours you would get as an occasional teacher. I really liked also looking at all the possible astronomy misconceptions and different ways that you can teach the moon cycles. I particularly enjoyed looking at the Earth from the moon's perspective over the course of one moon cycle, as well as what the moon cycle will look like from the south. Astronomy is kind of my strong point. It was something I was always interested in. Once you become more familiar with the topic, I suppose that it could become less obvious that some students may not be getting the concepts that seem so obvious to you. I mean, that's the main job of a teacher, though, is trying to take the knowledge you know and make it something that everybody can understand. There's something that really resonated with me last class, and that was the idea of you're not teaching physics, you're teaching students. I know that when I was on practicum, I was very focused on my lesson. My classroom awareness wasn't the best. I'm having a really hard time trying to imagine how I could do that. And maybe it's a little bit too soon in my career to figure that out, and I'm sure it will probably come with time. But still, I would like to hear more about that. Aside from that, in my other classes, my prof classes, we were looking at assessment a lot. I am really nervous about assessing students that are maybe in grade 12, for which, you know, the grade does have a high impact on where they can go and what kind of scholarships they can get. Assessing students, I think, is going to be really hard for me. The way I was brought up is that, you know, you would take an exam and you would get marks and, you know, eventually it would just average out to some kind of grade. The system that we currently have seems to be more of, okay, this is where their level's at, and now I have to find a number that works with that level. Well, a level 4 would be anywhere between 90 and 100, and then you get to pick, kind of judge where they should be on that scheme. And it seems, I mean, no matter how you put it, assessment will be subjective, and there's no way of being perfectly objective about it. It's just something more to think about before I write my personal philosophy of teaching paper. Another thing that I thought was really interesting this week is that in my math curriculum class, we looked at the concept of gamification, basically just incorporating a lot more games as the medium for which you can teach a subject, and even making the whole assessment method a kind of a game. Instead of accumulating grades and marks and stuff, instead you would be accumulating experience points. After you reach a certain amount of experience points, you get to be to an added level and have a new status. I don't think I would personally use that method of assessment in my classroom. However, I think that I probably would try and incorporate a lot of games in my classroom. Playing Jeopardy is a great one, and something that I actually did while on my practicum, and the kids loved it. Our professor showed us how to play this game called Bing, where you basically have a lot of answers in a 4x4 matrix, and then you would be asking a question and they'd have to find the solution and see if it's in their Bing card. And so it's a lot like bingo. I'm gonna try and prepare a few beforehand and actually use it in the classroom. So yeah, those are the lessons that really stood out to me this week. So I'm off to do a bit more homework, and I'll see you next week.